Alright guys, how's it going? Welcome back. Well, behind me is the massively refreshed 2024 Kia Picanto, and today I'm going to review it. The Picanto is the smallest model in Kia UK's lineup, and it's been around for 20 years now. It's hard to believe, isn't it, but the first one came out in 2004. Before you skip this video, just bear with me because it's actually quite an interesting little car. Let me tell you a bit about it then. Now, the Mark I Picanto, which ran from 2004 to 2011, wasn't particularly sexy. There was nothing really to write home about. It was just cheap, simple transport to get you from A to B. But this, on the other hand, well, look at it. It's a good looking thing, isn't it? This, granted, is the sporty GT line model, and it's finished in sporty blue. Here's a piece of advice actually, if you're under 50 and you're watching this, you must opt for the GT line. Here's a little city car that you'd actually choose to buy on looks alone, not just on price. The new Picanto has taken a lot of inspiration from the EV9, and you can see that here in these lights. So you've got these vertical lights down here, exactly as you get on all new Kias. I also love the contrasting high gloss black bits you get. It just looks very sporty and purposeful. I love the design of the wheels, and I love this little black skirt you get, which runs all the way to the back of the car. And wait till we get to the back. Look at this horizontal light bar, which runs the full width of the car. It's a good looking thing, isn't it? And look at these little rear, I don't know what you call them, rear diffuser? I mean, we've only got a 62 brake horsepower 1 litre 3-cylinder engine, so I'm not too sure what it's diffusing, but they look cool. Kia offer the Picanto in 4 different variants. So there's the 2, the GT line, like this, there's the 3, or the GT line S. Personally, I'd go for a GT line or a GT line S. Kia have kept the prices low and affordable, which means the Picanto should remain one of the best-selling cars. There are 2 different engines available, and both are naturally aspirated. There's a 1 litre 3-cylinder, like the one behind me, that produces 62 brake horsepower, or there's a 4-cylinder, that's a 1.2 with 77 brake horsepower. I mean, take a look at the brushed aluminium badge. Everything just looks nice and expensive. And it isn't, that's the thing. The Picanto 2 starts at just $15,595. For the GT line model like this, you'll have to spend an extra £1,200. But I think that's £1,200 well spent. It looks like it's about to rain, so should we head inside? Well, straight away what I can tell you is that this doesn't feel like a little car. It's nice and spacious. There's plenty of headroom, plenty of legroom, plenty of elbow room. You get a nice armrest in the middle. The key design's quite cool as well. You get this nice infotainment screen here, which is very easy to read and user-friendly. You also get a reverse camera. You get sat-nav, Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, but they're not wireless, those features. You've got to plug it into the USB. We've got DAB, so we can listen to Scott Mills playing Beyonce, and it is quite responsive, really. Oh, let's play the sounds of nature. Some things haven't really changed, like the climate control switches down here, but there's no point in changing them because they all still work. I guess to keep the prices low, they haven't opted for any complicated touchscreens. Everything still gets a traditional button or dial. But on the bright side, it's less to go wrong. What has improved, though, is the gauge cluster. So you get these nice dials. Everything's digital and easy to read. It all looks quite futuristic too. I also love the design of the steering wheel. It's got a nice flat bottom like you'd get on an Audi S-Line. It's all quite cool, really. You know, I think this would be the perfect first car. You wouldn't be the envy of all your mates in a Mark I Picanto, granted, but in this, I think you would be. In terms of interior storage, you get 2 cup holders down here, you get some more storage there, some more storage in the middle, and even more storage under this little armrest. You get a decent sized glove compartment. You get door pockets with somewhere to store a bottle. It's all very practical. Let me show you the back then. So the driver's seat has been set up for me, and I'm 5'11", and I've still got a reasonable amount of legroom. You know, for a small car, it's surprisingly spacious, this. Plenty of headroom, plenty of elbow room, and watch this, the windows go down all the way. They don't stop halfway. And they've lowered the whole waistline of the car, so the windows are bigger, and they let more light in, so it doesn't feel claustrophobic. Now, there's no armrest in the middle, but you do get 2 ISOFIX points. Let me show you the boot then. So the boot offers quite a decent space. With the seats up, you get 255 litres of space and some more storage there under that little shelf. But if you drop these seats, like so, and remove this little shelf, there we go. Not done that for a while, you can tell. The space increases to 1,010 litres. So it's a really usable space. I mean, for such a little car, You could do a good IKEA trip in that, couldn't you? You might not get a Billy bookcase in, but you would get a few bedside tables. Should we get this out on the road then, see how it performs? Alright then, so the first time behind the wheel of the all-new Kia Picanto. What can I tell you? Well, straight away, it feels like it's quite good fun to drive. You know, these days cars are just getting bigger and bigger and more bloated, so it's quite nice and refreshing to get in something that's small. And you know, the actual dimensions of the Kia Picanto haven't changed since 2011. That's quite impressive, isn't it? When you consider things like the Igo, well, they don't even make the Igo anymore, do they? They make the Igo X, which is like a sort of jacked up SUV wannabe. Whereas this little Picanto remains true to itself. Now the little 1 litre, as featured in this car today, is a little 3-cylinder naturally aspirated engine. And it produces 62 brake horsepower, which gives this a 0 to 62 time of around 15 seconds. Which admittedly sounds terribly pedestrian, doesn't it? But 0 to 40 actually feels quite nippy. And that's what you want from a car like this. You need to be able to weave and nip in and out of traffic. The 1.2 litre has an extra cylinder, so that one's a 4-cylinder naturally aspirated engine, and that makes 77 brake horsepower. But, crucially, that one's limited to the GT Line S model. If you're looking for fuel economy above all else, then you really need to go for this little 1 litre, because this one will do up to 54 miles per gallon. Saying that, the little 1.2 litre hardly drinks fuel like a Hummer H2. That'll do around 10% less than this. The Kia Picanto has been around for 20 years now, and I've bought and sold dozens of them. Now the early ones, which ran from 04 to 08 before they got a facelift, then they continued for another 3 years after that, the engines were quite, well, you always knew it was on. Whereas this, it's quite refined. You can barely hear the little 3-cylinder engine. In fact, the same's true of the whole car. The whole thing feels very, very grown up. This is just way more luxurious than it has any right to be. I mean, you can spec the new Picanto with heated seats and a heated steering wheel in a Picanto. It's crazy, really. If you think about buying a used Picanto, or any car in fact, or motorbike, then you really must do a thorough vehicle history check before you hand over any cash. Now, I always use a company called Car Vertical, who happily are today's video sponsor. So they're really easy to use. All you do is go to carvertical.com, type in the vehicle reg or the VIN, and away you go. A few minutes later, you're provided with a really thorough check. This isn't just a UK thing either. They check databases in 35 different countries. They check hundreds of millions of cars. So it'll tell you if the car you're looking at's ever been stolen, written off, had a mileage rollback, or has outstanding finance on it. And there are an awful lot of lemons out there on the used market, so you really don't know what you're buying, so you must do one of these checks. It's very easy to use and it isn't expensive, and it's cheaper still if you use my promo code HIGHPEAK. That's HIGHPEAK, HIGHPEAK, all one word, and you'll save yourself 20% off each and every check. Or alternatively, click the link below in the video description. What's clever about Car Vertical is that it shows you all the MOT history, it shows you all the mileage on a graph, so straight away you can see if there are any anomalies. If it has been involved in an accident, sometimes it even shows you a photograph of the crash damage. Sometimes, you know, it even shows you photographs of the last time the car was for sale. So you can compare the condition and the price and the ownership and make sure it all tallies. I've been using them now for years and I'm always getting positive feedback from people, so check them out. And like I say, don't forget to use my promo code HIGHPEAK for 20% off. So cheers Car Vertical for sponsoring today's video. Right, back to the Picanto. All Picantos come with a 5-speed manual gearbox as standard, which is a pleasure to use actually. The gear changes are short and slick. If you don't want a manual, you could go for an automatic, but this is my one gripe really, or my biggest gripe. It's only an automated manual, so it isn't a proper automatic. You only get 2 pedals, so most people wouldn't know the difference, but if you've ever had the misfortune of driving an automated manual, they're just not as good as a proper automatic. And when I say a proper auto, I mean a conventional automatic with a torque converter. Automated manuals have actuators and it's basically a robot that does the clutch for you. In fairness, I haven't driven a new auto Picanto, but I can't imagine it being better than any other automated manual I've driven. They're always very easily confused, very hesitant, and in the long run, quite unreliable. In terms of reliability, you shouldn't have any fears with Kia. They all come with a 7-year or 100,000 mile warranty. And in my experience, you rarely have to go back to the main dealer outside of servicing work. They're very well built, reliable cars. The more time I spend in this, you know, it's a joy to drive and be in. It's just so small. You can just weave in and out of traffic. It's an ideal little city car. And this manual gearbox is really good fun to use. What's clever about the Picanto is that inside it's surprisingly spacious. It doesn't feel like you're in a small car. You don't sit particularly low to the ground, you've got good all-round visibility. It's just a really easy car to place and park, and that's exactly what you want in the city or town centre. When you look through the rearview mirror at the rear screen, that's where it ends, like a cliff edge. The seats are very comfortable and supportive. Everything you touch, press and feel feels good quality. It doesn't feel like you're in a cheap tin can. And to be fair, without being harsh, that's what the first generation Picanto felt like. The first generation Picanto always felt, in my opinion, like you'd made your decision solely on price. This doesn't. There's actually a little city car that you'd want to own. And you get things like power folding mirrors and four-way electric windows. Up front you get 4 air vents. That might sound like I'm scraping the bottom of the barrel here when I'm trying to compliment this car, but trust me, things like the iGo and the VW up exclamation mark, they don't provide that. You just get this one central vent in the middle, whereas this provides plenty of air, especially on a close summer's day like today. This humble little Picanto comes with a host of safety tech as well to keep you and your occupants in one piece. So for example, you've got lane keep assist and you've got active lane centering. I've just turned on active lane centering, so, oh there we go, it's doing it for me. How clever's that, from a little Picanto? Doing it again. I'm well impressed with this. Every couple of seconds it does beep to remind you to, not fall asleep at the wheel. But that's ever so clever. Now this car is definitely better suited for city driving. If your commute involves a stretch of motorway, you might be better with the 4-cylinder, the 1.2, rather than the little 1 litre. At higher speeds, this 1 litre can feel a little bit strained. Something else that's impressive about this car is the turning circle. You could turn this car around on a sixpence. Quite often with small cars with a short wheelbase, you feel every single bump. That isn't really the case with the Picanto. It rides quite nicely. It doesn't feel all soft and floppy. It's nicely composed, but it's never too firm or crashy. I've got absolutely no reason to complain, to be fair. It rides very well. Let's do a little performance test then. So we'll drop it down into third, foot to the floor. We're doing 44. It performs all right. I think it's everything you could ask for from a car like this. The fuel tank's only 35 litres, so it should only cost you around £50 to fill the tank, and from that you should get around 400 miles. You know what I really like about this car is that it's quite charming, it's quite characterful. It almost reminds me of, well, my old Fiat Panda. It isn't just a bland box with 4 wheels. There's more to it than that. I've enjoyed using it, and I don't often enjoy driving cars like this, but there's just something about it. It's managed to put a smile on my face. In fact, as I've been driving it, I've been trying to think of an excuse to buy one. I don't know why, I don't need one. I really don't need one. But yeah, I quite like the idea of it. I think if I lived in the city centre, I'd seriously consider one. It would have to be one like this, mind, a GT line in a good colour. I just think it's got an awful lot going for it. I'd definitely have this over the competition. I mean, what else is there in the ever-shrinking A segment? There's no more KA, there's no more iGo. What is there really? You've got the i10, which is a bit of a pensioner's car, isn't it? You've got the VW Up, the Fiat 500. No, I think I'd have this. I think what Kia have done here is make a safe, solid car more appealing to a younger audience. And that's no small feat. Without wishing to be inflammatory, the old Picanto was a bit of a pensionermobile, wasn't it? And this definitely isn't. If I needed a car like this for 16,745, my money would be firmly with Kia and their 7-year, 100,000 mile warranty. I mean, think about it. You could keep it for 7 years until the warranty expired, and you'd still get a decent chunk of money back for it. It's a no-brainer. Well, I think that's about it, guys and girls. So thank you once again for watching. Make sure you give the video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't done already. You can follow me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. I'll leave the links below. And yeah, cheers, guys. See you next time.